We have Tom Fitton on the line, president of Judicial Watch, and one of the few people in the Washington area who actually gets some stuff done. He's also is the author of a book called Clean House. You guys should pick that up as well. Tom, good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good to be with you. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you back, and it's great to have your voice on the air. So let's talk about the state of the Mueller investigation. In particular, we were just talking briefly about this NBC bombshell report that he was wiretapped. It turns out he was just merely being monitored, Michael Cohen, and his communication with the White House. How big of a deal is this to you?
Well, I understand. There's a big difference between a wiretap and a pen register, but I don't think no matter you slice it, it's still abusive as far as the a really unprecedented targeting of the president's lawyer by federal investigators. I'm not sure if this was the Mueller team of the Southern District or the Justice Department, as they call it, the main Justice Department here in Washington, D.C. But it's an extraordinary step to target the president's lawyer. And, I just don't see any good faith basis to do it in these circumstances. It is on par with the raid. In fact, it suggests that the raid was only the tip of the iceberg in terms of abuse, because not only did you have the pen register going, and I don't know whether we can say wiretaps were going. The NBC report quoted 3 government officials saying there was no wiretap, it was a pen register. Well, who told them there was a wiretap, and why were they wrong? But secondly, you also had his email accounts, which we had previously learned about, but reaffirmed again. Cohen's email accounts were also being monitored. This is the president that's being monitored indirectly as a result of that type of activity, and it's just extraordinary.
Yeah, it is extraordinary, and you probably heard me speculating right before we brought you onto the show. It's like, how do these things get out? How does NBC get this information? The interest level in terms of the media and trying to get these deep state leaks, and the people within the government who appear to oppose the president and oppose his agenda just seem to be so eager to put out information that could be detrimental to him. And in my opinion, Tom, part of it is just distracting the news cycle and capitalizing off of the tabloid nature of this presidency. And it's so destructive for progress and for getting things accomplished in Washington.
It is. And I don't know if the special counsel leaked it. Maybe some of the lawyers who are aware of the special counsel's activities as a result of defending their clients, they may have access to the information, or their clients could have had access to the information. So there are all sorts of possibilities for the leaks. But, it's almost irrelevant as to the underlying issue of a special counsel that is running the show in the Justice Department. These allegations against Cohen, or whatever they are, were not substantial enough to warrant the extraordinary intervention in the relationship between the President of the United States and his personal lawyer through these raids and other monitoring of the lawyer's activities.
So let's talk about the concept of abusive surveillance. A lot of people in the Never Trump crowd are putting out that if there's a warrant, then basically everything is above ground, is above board. Everything is fine. They can tap or surveil or however they want to do it. I mean, I went to high school. I learned that you can have a warrant and it can be abused, and you can collect more information than you're actually allowed to get with that warrant. It doesn't mean that you're allowed to have full surveillance powers. Yet that is what's being touted in much of the punditry class right now, particularly from the crowd that hates this president.
Yeah, just because you had presumably the layers of review necessary to go after the president's lawyer, either both at the Justice Department, and obviously a federal judge would have had to approve the warrant in the case of the raid of Cohen's office. I don't know what was obtained in order to get the pen register and the email surveillance, but it doesn't mean it was an appropriate use of government authority to target the president and all of his people.
Yes, that's precisely right, and so there are limits on that, or at least theoretically there are. Okay, so a lot of people call in one of the most common questions we get in the show and discussion points where I find myself without a lot of solutions or clarity, which is what are the options to deal with the fact that the special counsel, it's gone on for so long. They're clearly not going to find Russian collusion, regardless of what you think of how Rudy Giuliani's comported himself on television the last few days. He has been effective in making it clear that the collusion narrative is dead. Now they're focusing on probably obstruction of justice, maybe some sort of white-collar crime, but that appears to be less and less the case, more on an obstruction of justice thing. So, but what can be done? I mean, if the president fires Bob Mueller, it's going to be the proverbial constitutional crisis. It's going to be used to push impeachment. I mean, well, what are the options that are on the table, Tom?
Well, there are intermediate steps that can be done to restrain the ability of the special counsel to do this wide-ranging investigation that will require the Justice Department, Rod Rosenstein in particular, as the supervisor, purportedly, of Mr. Mueller to step up and actually constrain him. Doing the right thing is always hard, and the Justice Department doesn't want to do it. I think the president is sorely tempted to do it. And so, this is why he was being paid. That's why he's being paid the big bucks, proverbially speaking, or given the responsibility of the presidency, because people thought that President Trump, when faced with things like this, will step up and take care of the issue. And this is not about the president personally. It's about the government, the United States of America, whether we're going to allow it to be under assault by this prosecutorial process that was created out of bad faith, illegal leaks, and is targeting who knows what from who knows why. And if the president can issue a series of pardons that would knock out the purpose of any Mueller investigation, he can order him fired. His friends and allies of the Constitution and Congress can provide oversight and funding and change the law, or the Justice Department can step up and do the right thing and shut it down. So there's a series of options, and if impeachment is the goal, I don't think that's going to matter. Whether if Mueller is operating, there'll be impeachment. If he's shut down, there'll be impeachment. So you might as well do the right thing and fight on the grounds that I did the right thing to protect the nation, as opposed to this never-ending investigation that will continue into the next Congress and spur calls for impeachment, no matter who's controlling Congress.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. That, I mean, impeachment, he doesn't need to. He could fire someone or not. There's still, the House is going to push to impeach if the Democrats take back the House in 2018. And in fact, impeachment will probably make President Trump's approval ratings go up, as it did under Bill Clinton, because Bill Clinton got impeached for lying under oath, which he actually did. President Trump presumably would get impeached for virtually nothing, just because he's got the wrong politics and the wrong style. So it could end up backfiring big league. So maybe you're right. So that's worth considering, and we'll take your calls on that later in the show at 866-95-PATRIOT. Tom Fitton's with me, president of Judicial Watch. You guys can go to judicialwatch.org if you want to keep up with what they're doing. And you can contribute there too, Tom, if people are supportive of what you guys are up to.
Oh, yeah, judicialwatch.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, and Instagram, and all the, I don't know what other social media could possibly be on, but YouTube, I guess. So we're all over the place.
Okay, let's go back in time to James Comey and his book that came out. And I have to say that people who listen to the show with regularity know that I'm not a name caller. I don't disparage people who disagree with us. And in fact, I think tactically the left is much stronger than the right at this point in time in terms of getting their agenda across, which is the only explanation, in my opinion, of how they can have such horrible ideas and continue to win elections and get things done, is because they're better strategically than we are. I think putting out James Comey as the voice of the resistance was a huge misstep. I think he's a total clown. I think he has handled himself poorly in virtually every public situation that I've witnessed. And he is just, his demeanor is horrible. His content is horrible. And he just was incompetent as FBI director. And so I sort of delighted in this Comey news cycle, but I want to get your thoughts on it.
Well, my view is the deep state best operates with the veneer of government activity and secret leaks, but it doesn't really stand up to the light of day, and that's why they don't like the transparency. They don't like being held accountable accountable directly, those who run the deep state. And that's what we're seeing with Comey. His book tour was turned into an accountability project for, thankfully, the country and some in the media. And he's had to answer questions about his illegal leaks. He hasn't been able to answer them credibly. He's had to answer questions about his communications with Donald Trump and his motivations. He's been the veil's been lifted in terms of his anti-Trump hatred. So it's been a disaster for those trying to target Trump. And I think most particular for Robert Mueller, because this is the guy who created the Mueller investigation. Through an illegal leak and anti-Trump animus, we now have this special counsel who is investigating, like I said, the president's lawyer and Paul Manafort's suits. And Mueller's operation is, in my view, a zombie investigation. Still do a lot of damage, but it has little credibility in terms of its genesis and reason for being.
Yeah, and I think that this is on the money. So I want to change focus now to another popular topic that we get on the show, which is, can the president go back in time and start doing some of these investigations that folks like you and I fantasized about during the Barack Obama years, whether it be with the IRS, whether it be Lois Lerner, in particular Hillary Clinton. And I still get calls about people suggesting that we should go and investigate Hillary Clinton, and particularly with the Clinton Foundation, Uranium One, all the great reporting that we did at Breitbart and the Breitbart family with Peter Schweitzer years ago, that the president immediately upon election announced that Hillary had been through enough and he wasn't interested in pursuing them. Is there any chance of reviving some of this stuff? We know you guys at Judicial Watch have issued FOIA requests on some of this information. What's happening here with the possibility of investigating and holding accountable some of those nefarious actors from the Obama era?
Well, it would be, I don't want to overstate the possibility, but it's better than not. It's better than 0%. We just released documents the other day on from the Clinton email system. We got more emails, and Hillary Clinton had 10 additional classified records that she didn't tell the American people about, tried to delete and withhold, but we forced out through our FOIA process. So this material keeps on dribbling out, and it's more than enough evidence to just arrest her related to the mishandling of classified information. And the conundrum for the Justice Department is, what is their view on the state of the law on the mishandling of classified information? Is it the Comey analysis, which is that, you don't need intent, even though you did have it with Hillary, and you really can't charge anyone? Or is it the rule of law analysis, which is to enforce the law as written, has been applied repeatedly through the years against Hillary Clinton filing? I'd like to know what the Justice Department thinking on this is. Maybe their thinking is, what, Comey was wrong, but it's water under the bridge. We're not going to go back and reopen it. But they've been silent, and we need answers.
And so who do you hold accountable? Because we get a lot of people. Another hotly debated topic is Jeff Sessions, because I tend to be a supporter of Jeff Sessions. A lot of people trash Jeff Sessions. You watch Sean Hannity and Rudy Giuliani were kind of trashing him this week. And is there more Sessions can be doing here to hold some of these people accountable, particularly those from the Obama era?
Well, I don't know if he's recused himself from the Clinton email investigation or not. It seemed to have done that during his hearings, his confirmation hearings. He said he was not going to be involved in campaign-related matters, specifically related Clinton emails. I think Sessions' biggest failure as Attorney General is the failure of imagination in terms of releasing the records that the public can be made publicly available, allowing his agency to withhold them improperly from Judicial Watch and the American people, and most specifically Congress, which is leading to all sorts of fights. And that's where the big leadership gap is. Certainly the president is upset with his recusal from the biggest Justice Department investigation ever, and that was a big mistake. But all of those things can be rectified if he steps up. And I don't want to see people getting fired willy-nilly. You
Sure.
don't want that to happen if it can be avoided. But he does need to step up and do the sort of work I'm talking about. Same with Rod Rosenstein. Either step up or step out. I mean, that's got to be the standard for all government officials. And, Sessions has opportunities to fix what's been done.
Yeah.
I just hope he takes them.
And one thing here that I do want to say, which is that even though I think Sessions is a brilliant guy and he's a patriot, he is media averse, and this stuff is going to be very high profile. And I'm hoping that's not informing his decision on whether or not to do the right thing here and start investigating some of this stuff, because the guy doesn't want to be front and center in the media, because this stuff will immediately start investigating the Clintons. It's going to be huge media sensationalism, but it doesn't make it wrong just because the media is going to be all over it. So hopefully this happens in the near future. Okay, so Tom Fitton, you've been very generous with your time. Anything else on your mind that you want to bring to the Breitbart audience this morning?
No, I think we covered a lot. Thanks, Alex.
We sure did, and as you well know, I very much appreciate what Judicial Watch is doing. One of the few good guys out there in Washington. JudicialWatch.org. If you want to keep up with what they're doing, I think most of their big stuff ends up at Breitbart.com as well. But you can support them by going to JudicialWatch.org, and they're all over social media as well. Thanks, Tom. We'll catch up with you soon.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, Alex Marlow, Breitbart News Daily. We'll be back with your calls after these messages.